The one and only address is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When we, Va'avadtem et Hashem Elokechem, when we will serve and worship God, everything else will fall into place, the Mamnoah says. Torah goes on to detail all of the items, and if you'd like to call it, the dimensions and the furniture and vessels in the Mishkan. The Zera Shimshon goes on in a very deep and beautiful way explaining each of the vessels and pieces of furniture. Yet there's one we'd like to focus on this evening, and that is the menorah. The menorah was lit by the Kohen Gadol. All 7 were lit every day. It's not like we think by Chanukah it was 1 day, 2, 3. That's all only in commemoration of the miracle of Chanukah. All 7 lamps were always burning in the Bet HaMikdash and in the Mishkan as well.
Every day?
If we look at a flame, Chazal, our sages tell us, is very similar to a soul. And that's, by the way, the reason why we light candles in the merit and in the memory of the deceased. What's the correspondence between a soul and a flame? There's many different ones. I'll share 2 of them. One is that we see a flame is lit, but it eventually goes out. And so too a human being in this world. Eventually, each and every one of us, in our due time, hopefully at a ripe, long age, will eventually pass on and move on to the next world, the world of eternity. In this world, our soul is compared to a flame that when passing on to the next world extinguishes from this world. And therefore what we do to remember the deceased, we light a candle right when they pass away, and that goes for 7 days, the Shiv'ah. And then by the month we light another candle. And then by the year, and every year forevermore. And any woman who'd like to add candles for their family, for Chachamim that passed away, by Erev Shabbat, when they light the Shabbat candles, that's all beautiful. That's all reminding and giving merit to the deceased. There's another reason why we are compared to flames and candles, is if you ever take a candle, and this happens, I'm sure it's happened to all of us at a certain point in our lives, and you hold it, whether you're holding it in a match or in a candle, the flame always maintains its position in the fact that there's always the bottom, which is where the source is, if you'd want to call it, it's that blue part of the flame. And then there's the top, that more yellowy part. And no matter how I hold it, whether I bend and sideways, straight, upside down even, it's going to go back up. It always has its base and the top. And what does that allude to? That alludes to our soul. What is our soul? Our soul is that mesh, it's that binding between our physical self, which is our body, and us to God, and us to something greater than physicality. That is our soul. Our soul connects our physicality to the Almighty, to the Infinite, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And here in this world, we are like flames. It's connecting a base, this world, the physical part of this world, the materialistic aspects of this world, to Shamayim, to heaven. And that's why it's always straight. And again, it's due to gravity, obviously, but it still resembles us. Others say that a flame is also compared to a soul, to a person that prays, and that comes where the flicking, the wicking of the candle, the shuckling back and forth when we pray, is also an allusion in that way. But this is what the lamp and the candles represent. The Zera Shimshon tells us that we have an obligation to illuminate our neshama, to illuminate our souls with Torah and mitzvot. But he says something extra. He says, you want to know the real way to do it? It's not in the quantity, it's in the quality, and the quality is measured by one factor. If you do it with joy and happiness. It doesn't really matter what you do or how much of it do you do. What matters, are you pleased and are you happy to do so? And he says we have an obligation to illuminate our nishamot. Literally, light them up, spark them up, inspire them through learning Torah, through fulfilling mitzvot. But how do we do that? We do that by fulfilling and learning and doing with joy, happiness, excitement, looking forward to want to do it. That's the only way to do it. Now you might ask, and this is a very valid question, Rabbi, how can I be happy? Even if I do enjoy what I'm doing, the learning, the hesed, the loving kindness, whatever I'm doing, the mitzvot. But I'm not happy. How can I be happy? How can I do it being happy if I'm not happy? To this, the Zera Shimshon tells us, quotes a pasuk in Kohelet. Kohelet chapter 6, verse 7 says as follows, Kol amal ha'adam lipihu, that all a person's hard work and toil is only for his mouth. Shlomo HaMelech on a basic level is telling us that we work hard to eat, to survive. That's it. That's why we do it. The Midrash tells us something much more fascinating on this pasuk. The Midrash tells us that no matter what a person does, kol amal ha'adam, no matter how much toil and effort a person exerts, he would not even be able to repay God for one breath that God has granted us. We owe God gratitude and thanks for so many things. The Zera Shimshon teaches us we have so much to be happy for. The problem is we focus on what's bothering us now, what's hurting us now, and we tend to forget all the good that we've had and that we still have. It's like a paper cut, Ribono Shel Olam, standing 6 feet tall, able to do weights, able to run fast, able to think smart. Yet we have a little paper cut, we have a little ingrown toenail. It hurts. It's detrimental. It's life-changing. But look at what else is working. Look at the rest of your body. That's only coming to health. A person loses something. A person's emotionally occupied with something. We have to learn as human beings to identify the issue, acknowledge it. It's definitely hurting. Yet, as hard as it is, put things into perspective. Putting into perspective meaning we have 100,000 reasons to be happy, and we have 2 not to be happy. That's fine. The 2 is valid. We have to validate them. But again, put things into perspective. The Zera Shimshon is telling us, when you do it because you're happy. It's like when someone asks you to do something and you know you're going to have to do it. To some of us, it might be our spouse, and they ask something, they demand something, you're going to have to do it. So why rant and give a face and bark and growl and complain and huff and puff and roll our eyes? We're going to have to do it anyways. You're working so hard. To some of us growing up, it's when our parents told us to do things. And we jump up and down, and we knew we'd have to do it, but we still put on a show. To some of us, it's our employers, our spouses, our parents. Sometimes our kids ask us to do something, and we also give a whole show and we know we're going to have to do it at the end also. Why work so hard? If you're going to do it with a smile. Sometimes a friend, a neighbor is going to ask you to do something for them. They're going to ask you to do something. And you're going to have to do it. Or someone comes and asks you for charity. You're doing it anyways. You have no way out of it, whether you like it or not in some instances. At least be happy doing it. Why hurt yourself? Why make a whole to-do? It's hard. Rationally now, when we're not in the moment, woo, the rabbi sounds like he's got it down packed. No, we don't. But we have to be aware, when we catch ourselves in the moment, and we end up doing it, say, woo, it would have been so easy if I would have just done it with a smile from the beginning. If I wouldn't have put up a fight for it. And that's good, even though you failed and you messed up and you did put a fight up for it and you did huff and puff. But at least afterwards you realize, so next time it comes up, maybe you'll only put half a fight up. Until you realize that it's not worth it, and certain things we might as well do them with joy and happiness. The same thing is when it comes to our avodat HaKodesh, our avodat Hashem, our service to God. We need to wake up anyways in the morning. Why be miserable? We need to wake up, we need to pray, we need to come to minyan, we need to give charity, we need to say brachot. You're going to do it anyways, hopefully. Do it out of happiness, do it out of joy. Do it because it means something to you. Do it because you understand there is an intrinsic benefit that you have. Just be happy. It's kind of that simple. Rabbi Noach Weinberg gave an amazing analogy to what true happiness is, and he said, imagine a father, middle-class father, making a salary, paying his bills, just a simple guy. And something that bothers him tremendously is when his children take those permanent markers and draw on the walls in the house. He just can't anymore. It just bothers him. Every single time it happens, he explodes. So one time he was doing homework with one of his children, and at the corner of his eye, he sees another child pulling out the marker box and preparing to draw the next Picasso on their living room wall. Absolutely beautiful. And he's about to let him have it for destroying the wall. And at the same moment, he gets a call on his cell phone. And obviously, like all parents, unfortunately nowadays, we pay more attention to our phones than our children. He answers the call. This call, I tell you, we should have answered also. It was a call from the Powerball, and he won $100 million.
Good story.
So now, validating, making sure that it's true, he was in shock. He was overjoyed. He hangs up the phone. He's going over to get his car keys, to get in the car, to go claim his reward. And he walks by the Picasso his child just drew, and he didn't even flinch. A moment ago, he would have been screaming at the kid, throwing the markers out, making him wash it, making him repaint it. But he just doesn't care anymore. Why? Because there's a greater picture. He's going to claim something which he won't have to care about money for, at least for now. Again, what's the statistic? 80% of those who win the lottery don't have what they won within 12 months, and most of them are even in debt. So it's not a great miracle or a great blessing to win the lottery. But again, at that moment, the father put things into perspective. What am I going to start yelling at my son now? I'm going to win something that's worth so much more than that. And on his way driving there, someone cuts him off. Someone gives him a fender bender. Do you think he's going to stop and get into a fight and scream at the person? Who cares? This car now can be replaced many, many times over. Again, he put things into perspective. He was now going towards a goal, and he was not letting anything derail him from that goal. In life, we don't need to win the Powerball $100 million. We won it already, and I'll prove it to you. How much would you pay if all you had was one eyeball and you wanted a second one? How much? Give a number. Let's say you're cheap. You'd only spend $1 million on it. Don't worry. You'll make it. You'll fundraise for it. You'll do installments. We'll put a mortgage on it. Don't worry. You have 30 years to pay it. Okay. Now next, your right arm. How much would you pay for your right arm? And each finger on it. Can you imagine if we had this right arm with all 5 of its fingers, but we couldn't bend our arm? Imagine we didn't have an elbow. How much would you pay for an elbow? And each and every part of our body, and each and everything we have in our lives, each and every child that we have, each and every grandchild that we have. How much are these things worth? Money cannot buy happiness. We are all richer than we think. The problem with that is when something small in the grand spectrum of everything happens, we automatically shut down and become depressed and we become sad. And then our prayers are sad and they're not answered. And the mitzvot that we do are sad and they're almost worthless. And everything we do is gloomy and down and depressed. Anything and everything you do with happiness will be blessed. Always remind yourself these 2 things. Number 1, you're probably going to have to do it anyways. So at least do it with happiness, with smile, with joy. And number 2, put things into perspective. In business, I don't need to teach you about business. You have your gains and your losses. And your losses is part of the business. In whatever business you are in. Whether it has to do with produce, whether it has to do with shmatas, whether it has to do with real estate, in investment, stocks. Do I need to name every type of business? There's always loss and gains. In life, there is the same. And the same like we have a year end to our business. And we see, yes, we made X and we lost Y, but thank God we still came off on a positive. So too, we need to look at our lives and look at all the good things we have and all things that we don't like too much, and it's part of life and it's part of that growth and that struggle, and put things into perspective. Look at the grand scheme of things. David HaMelech wrote as follows. He says in Tehillim chapter 90 verse 10, Yemei shenotenu shiv'im shana. A person's life should be 70 years. 70 years, you're doing great. V'im bigvurot shemonim shana. And if you're very strong, 80 years. 70 or 80, that's all he says. Anything over that is above and beyond, and it's an ultimate amount of blessing. 70 is regular, and 80 is very strong. He says, and he continues, V'robam amal v'avin. That the majority of it is a lot of hard work that goes to waste. And he's warning us, David HaMelech. Use your years wisely. Use the time you have wisely. The Zera Shimshon says, take that menorah that has 7 flames on it and make sure that every decade in your life you illuminate it. 7 corresponding to the 70 years a person's granted. Illuminate every decade, every year, every month, every day, every moment of your life. Illuminate it with Torah and mitzvot. Illuminate it through happiness and through joy. Let us take this message and share it with others. Happiness is contagious. Depression is also. Getting down and gloomy and dark is also contagious. But when we count our blessings, we are able to be happy. Rabbi Noach Weinberg, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, the founder of Esh HaTorah, he said, as a good exercise for anyone who's struggling with their happiness, to take a notebook and every day write one thing you are thankful to God for that you have. As simple as it might be. Day 1, it's your right eyeball. Day 2, it's your left. Day 3, it's your nose, your ears, your whole body, your family, your livelihood, your community, your this, your that, something worked out good. Anything and everything. Write 100 of them. And now anytime you're ever feeling down, I'm sorry, go read that notebook. Paint that picture. Remind yourself what you have and is what you're going through worth getting down and depressed and angry for when you have at least 100 things to be grateful for to God and happy for. Ezu ashir, sameh bihilko. Many have the pursuit for wealth, for riches. The only way a person can be rich is when they are happy with what they have. Being happy with what you have does not take a genius. It just takes a moment a day for 100 days, a notebook and a pen. That's all it is. We have to count our blessings. We have to be thankful for our blessings. We have to acknowledge what we have. And don't let one thing ruin the whole thing. And the formation of our very nation and the creation of the world and of mankind. We have so much to be thankful for, and every miracle that the Jewish people had, whether it be big and famous or even small. Mishenichnas ardar marbim simcha, simcha for now, simcha for the past, and simcha b'zat Hashem for the anticipated future. If we live positively, if we live with a lens of happiness, everything will be joyful and happy. But if we do the opposite will be true. So let this month, this new month of Adar, bring a lot of joy and happiness to our lives.